Our next story is one of the weirdest thefts we've ever come across. A heist, where the loot was something no one ever thought to protect. Maple syrup. The syrup was stored in a warehouse in Quebec, thousands upon thousands of barrels of it. And while you're probably thinking, so what, it's maple syrup, consider the fact it's worth 13 times the price of crude oil. Tonight, we'll tell you how the theft happened, and we'll descend into the black market of maple syrup. It was a routine check. An accountant arrived for the yearly audit of maple syrup inventory at a warehouse about an hour outside Quebec City. The barrels were stacked 6 high, each one supposedly weighing 600 pounds. So the accountant scaled the pyramid confidently and reached for the top. And that's when he almost fell to his death, losing his balance, realizing the barrel was empty. No one panicked right away. At first, it only seemed like a handful of barrels were empty. Could have been an inventory glitch. But 3 weeks later, they checked again and realized this ran much deeper. Not only were some barrels empty, others had been filled with water. It would take nearly 3 months to fully realize the extent of this theft. Nearly 10,000 barrels worth of syrup gone, valued at a staggering $18 million. Sure, it's just maple syrup, most would say. That's what the group of thieves was counting on. But with a single barrel of maple syrup valued at more than $1,800, there was big money to be made. And the warehouse, located just off the highway in St. Louis de Blanford, Quebec, was ripe for the picking. The warehouse was a rented space, with no security cameras, no alarms, and inside, the backup supply of maple syrup for the world, worth $30 million. Today, that reserve looks like this, stored in case there's ever a bad harvest year. That stockpile of syrup is owned by the Federation of Quebec Maple Syrup Producers. The Federation is an organization that, by law, strictly controls all maple syrup sold wholesale in Quebec. Paul Riard is the Federation's deputy director.
At that time, nobody can imagine that an organization of thieves have the ability for take 6 million pounds.
While the Federation may not have imagined anyone would steal its syrup, neighbors had their suspicions. Raymond Pepin saw trucks going in and out of the warehouse at the weirdest hours.
Bon, il pouvait en passer dans la nuit, il pouvait en passer dans le jour, le matin.
One of the people helping load up those trucks, Pascal Patry, who we tracked down at his home. Pascal worked for the Federation, storing barrels in the warehouse. But one day, court records show, he says he noticed water around one of the barrels and approached a manager. That manager offered him $1,000 in hush money, and even more to join the cause. By day, Pascal would work for the Federation. By night, he says, he worked for the criminal organization, moving syrup-filled barrels so they could be shipped and placing water-filled barrels back in line. It would take a network of truckers to pull off the theft and cart away such a substantial haul. Among those accused, driver Sébastien Dutra.
Did you transport stolen syrup?
I transport maple syrup, but I don't know it's stolen.
Nobody ever said to you, this syrup is stolen?
Nope.
You were just a driver?
Yeah, that's it.
But Sebastian Jutras had a long-standing relationship with a man said to be one of the business partners behind the warehouse. He said that man gave him keys to the property and free parking for his company trucks.
Just park your truck there and no problem with that. Okay.
Was it a good deal?
Yeah, that's free. I like that.
He got the keys and the free parking from this man, Avik Caron, one of the reported partners in the warehouse, and according to police documents, one of the central players in the criminal organization. What the Federation may not have known when it was signing the contract to rent the warehouse was that at that very moment, Avik was being sued for running a scheme as an insurance agent. It wasn't the first time either. What's more, Avik had a criminal record, charged with fraud. He pled guilty, but the courts were lenient and didn't send him to jail. Avik Caron was free to do whatever he wanted. 3 months later, the maple syrup theft is said to have begun. Once the syrup was out of the warehouse, the thieves had to find a place to put it. According to police documents, it was sent to a number of transfer points, including this warehouse south of Quebec City. Martin Prue says he was hired to work there, not knowing what he was getting into. We found him at his home.
T'es comme deux gangs la manière.
Puis votre quartier, c'était plutôt les
Moi,
lits?
j'étais à Saint-Nicolas.
Ah,
Moi,
OK.
je m'occupais de Saint-Nicolas.
According to allegations in court documents, Martin told police that so much syrup was being shipped to that warehouse, he started to find it suspicious. So in July of 2012, he approached his boss. And that's when he says a curtain was lifted on the entire operation. Although he would later recant his statement, Martin first told police his boss admitted the syrup was stolen, and it was from the Federation's reserve. That boss? A man named Richard Valliere. A man who is notorious for working outside the rules. Richard Valliere is to the maple syrup industry what rum runners were in the time of Prohibition. They call him a barrel roller, a man who brokers deals on the black market in defiance of the Federation's laws.
Be sure of one thing, he hates us.
He hates the Federation.
Be sure. Imagine a thing you can do against the regulation in maple syrup. I'm sure he done it.
The Federation has already fined Richard a whopping $1.8 million for breaking its rules. Not that that stopped him, they say.
So when you heard that Richard Valliere was accused in this theft, did it surprise you?
No, not surprising. Smiling. Again. I remember, I say again.
To the Federation, the theft all comes down to Richard.
In French, we say the cerveau, but
The brain.
The brain of the thing. And Richard Valliere, we know him before this thief. He's a man always against the Federation.
As a middleman in the industry, Richard had developed two things: a network of producers who would sell to him, and buyers who would purchase from him on the black market. Buyers like Étienne Saint-Pierre in New Brunswick.
They said the stolen maple syrup was in
from
your
Blaine.
warehouse.
It wasn't over here.
And was it?
It was not.
Étienne did buy syrup from Richard during the time of the theft, just like he had done for years. But he says he never knowingly bought stolen syrup.
Did he ever suggest that the maple syrup was coming from the Federation's warehouse? That it may have been
No,
stolen?
I never.
Still, police swept in anyway, charged Étienne, and seized $1.6 million worth of syrup and equipment.
They searched all the sugar bush around. I said, what happened with you? They said the Federation sent us over here because he said everything was here. All the drum you see over here, it's above 1/3 of what they took.
So 3 times as many barrels as we're seeing in this room.
Yes.
They seized.
Yes.
It was enough to ruin him for the season and nearly put him out of business. Whoever was responsible for this multi-million-dollar heist knew there was a deadline approaching. That in late July, the Federation would send an accountant for an annual inspection of the maple syrup inventory. And they knew they'd better be ready. Next, texts, threats, and arrests. July 20th, 2012, 10 days before the Federation's yearly audit of the warehouse, and there is panic. According to police, these are text messages between several of the accused. Police analysis shows the phones used were registered under fake names. Names of Star Wars characters. Luke Skywalker, Leia, Han Solo. The listed address for one of the cell phones, 234 Dark Side. The names may have been fictitious, but according to police, the facts behind those text messages indicate a cover-up. Four days before the annual inspection, and they know there's a risk. But dim lights wouldn't cut it. Whether the thieves got lazy and stopped filling up the barrels with water, or simply forgot, that miscalculation would prove costly. The criminal empire would come tumbling down like the empty barrel stacked carelessly atop the pile. The investigation that followed pointed to a heist that went on for nearly a year. And for police, the evidence uncovered was damning. In that second warehouse south of Quebec City, they found prints, pumps, barrels with the Federation's label still on them, and even more barrels with a handwritten label that read R. Valliere. According to court documents, the accused became nervous. One of them told police that Avic Caron threatened them, that if they spoke with police, they'd be shot in the head. Another one of the accused told 16 by 9 threats came from people with mafia connections. But for police, the evidence spoke for itself, and they moved in, arresting 26 people in connection with the alleged criminal ring. 2 have pled guilty. All of the others maintain their innocence, including the man who had access to the syrup, Avic Caron, and the man with the connections to sell it, Richard Valliere. None of the allegations against them have been proven in court. The one player that was never charged is the Federation, even though there are whispers among producers that it was involved, that it needed a way to clear out its burgeoning reserve and collect an insurance payout.
Was the Federation involved with the theft in any way?
Everybody can think what they want to think, eh?
Was it involved, to your knowledge?
Not at all. Not at all.
Still, perhaps some say it was negligent.
You had $30 million stored in that warehouse.
Yeah.
And what was the security that was in place?
Fence. Not not a big security. At that time, you have to imagine that who wants to thief maple syrup?
Was that naive?
Perhaps a bit. Perhaps a bit.
The Federation couldn't imagine someone stealing maple syrup, and yet, this wasn't the first major theft in Quebec. While the ink was barely dry on the rental contract for the warehouse, a truck with $100,000 worth of syrup in it was stolen. 5 years earlier, that same maple syrup supply was robbed, with $1.3 million worth of syrup taken. That case is still open, and police say one of their suspects is Richard Valliere, a theft he once again denies being any part of. Next, a black market for syrup.
Non, il marche pas le système de manure, ça marche pas. Ça marche pas un système de manure, c'est impossible.
And a threat from the south.
We can dwarf Quebec easily here in the United States.
What the great maple syrup heist of 2012 revealed wasn't just a sophisticated criminal network. It showed there was an appetite for millions of dollars worth of contraband syrup. A thriving black market fueled by producers and buyers who are enraged by the Federation's system.
In the eyes of Quebec law, what everyone here is doing is illegal.
Yes, yes.
These outlaws are maple syrup producers and buyers who don't conform to the rules. Rules set by the Federation of Quebec Maple Syrup Producers, which state all wholesale maple syrup has to go through them.
Non, il marche pas le système de manure, ça marche pas. Ça marche pas un système de manure, c'est impossible.
In the eyes of many, the Federation has become a legal cartel. It sets the price, it imposes production quotas, and it can take years to pay a producer in full.
What needs to change?
De nous laisser libre.
De nous laisser libre de vendre à qui qu'on veut.
But a free market is not what the Federation wants. So to stop people from buying and selling outside its rules, it hires undercover agents and demands crippling fines. Fines like the one levied on Philippe Jacques.
650 000, il faut.
Et $650 000 de vous.
Non, ils gagneront jamais une scène de moi. Jamais.
Some of these measures seem quite heavy-handed.
I don't think so. I don't think so. Why I have to feel bad because this man products outside of regulation and going on the TV and he cry a bit. Why I have to feel bad of that? No, I'm not feel bad of that. I never say him stop projects. I just say him stop projects out the system.
But while producers and the Federation fight it out, there is another threat to Quebec's famed industry, one that most people never saw coming.
We can dwarf Quebec easily here in the United States.
Dwarf Quebec.
Yes.
Colin Christie is an independent U.S. buyer who's been watching as America ramps up production.
We can provide as good a product, but we can sell it for cheaper. So it's
simple economics.
Yeah.
Quebec may still be by far the world leader in maple syrup production, dubbed the Saudi Arabia of syrup. But the U.S. is clawing away at its market share, taking nearly 10% of it in the last decade. If that trend continues, Canada stands to lose a $600 million a year industry and all the jobs that go with it.
Eventually, there's got to be a breaking point where the Canadian people will say, what are we doing here? We're creating an environment where the U.S. is going to take away from us what we are known for. Your flag has that Canadian maple leaf on it. It is part of your heart and soul in your country.
And it's moving south.
That's right. That's right.
But America plays another role in this story. This is where half of the stolen syrup was sold. And according to police, Richard Valliere is the one who got it here. He even has a U.S. bank account, the Federation claims, to hide the funds. Richard Valliere denies the allegations, but there's more to the money trail. According to police, Richard also had a corporate account in New Brunswick, and more than $6 million flowed through that account during the year of the theft. We wanted to speak with Richard about the money and the accusations he's facing, but he declined our repeated requests for an interview, so we met up with him in court.
Can we just have a couple words with you?
No, pas pour le moment.
Some people close to you have said that you may be working out a plea deal. What does that say about your possible involvement in this theft?
Merci.
Richard has pled not guilty to 4 charges, including trafficking and fraud. As for the man who had access to the syrup, Avik Caron, he too never returned our requests for an interview, so we tracked him down outside Trois-Rivières, Quebec. And he wasn't happy to see us.
Can we just ask you about your role in the theft, if you were involved with it at all?
Avik has pled not guilty to 5 charges, including theft, conspiracy, and fraud. Among the other accused, fracture lines are beginning to show. There's talk more will plead guilty. Today, the world's backup supply of maple syrup is housed in a new warehouse, this time with a security system.
We are near bank system. We are on the same system as bank.
You're saying a theft will not happen again?
Not by this way.
The Federation only ever recovered 15% of the stolen syrup, and it's still waiting for that insurance payout. In the meantime, 2 constants remain: the anger in this industry and the syrup, which continues to flow on the black market.
Coming up next week on 16 by 9, 2 explosions that rocked an industry. What happened at 2 BC sawmills that left 4 people dead and dozens injured? We examine the aftershocks and the unanswered questions.
I have never, ever seen a pile of sawdust that high.
We're going to blow up.
This material was dry as a bone. It burns like you wouldn't believe.
You're not stupid. Everybody knows sawdust burns.
Just about died right over there. Now they're up and running like nothing's happened.
But nobody seemed to take that and put it all together and say, wait a minute, we got a problem here. Until this.
You have said off camera, people have blood on their hands.
Yes.
I only wish that people listen to us.
And that is our broadcast for tonight. I'm Carolyn Jarvis. From all of us here at 16 by 9, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next week.